All right. So we are officially live on Zoom and live on YouTube. So welcome to everyone, whether you are watching in one of those formats live or if you are watching this recording afterwards. We're really excited to feature tonight's presentation. And so normally Allison, our executive director, will do the opening and introduction. She is on vacation on the East Coast, and she did have every intention of being here, but the logistics of the time zone were just a little too hard to overcome. So she expresses her regrets that she can't be here virtually with you all. So I'll kick off our introduction before I turn it over to our presenter for the evening. So as you might have seen when Laura sent out the notifications, we are featuring the guest curator for our upcoming exhibition, which is called Untold Legacies, Rethinking the American Cowboy. And so this is part of kind of a trend with Rancho Los Cerritos exhibits that goes back several years. So at least to a couple curators ago, Sarah Fitzgerald, who, when she started doing these kind of rotating or temporary exhibits. They used to be in the downstairs of the visitor center because the upstairs looked a bit different. And so that was a way that we were able to highlight some of the stories which are important to the history, but which you couldn't see visiting the historic house. So that's where we first had the history of Chinese immigrants to the Los Angeles area, and then our Tongva exhibit, Tibahangna to today. And Sarah, it was kind of, the ball got started for the Roots exhibit with Sarah, and then she left and Carlos kind of took over. And at that point, the exhibits evolved to not only feature these sort of untold, unshared stories, but also make connections to the present, and also thinking about Rancho Los Cerritos, not just as our 4.74 acres today, but as the 27,000 acres that made up that land grant that was Rancho Los Cerritos. So this exhibit that's opening on July 14th is kind of the third in this newly revamped rotating temporary exhibition schedule, and it's going to be up for a year. So it opens July 14th, and then it'll be up through June of 2025. And so again, it's kind of sharing some of the stories that haven't been told. So it represents the Rancho's vision and mission to share these culturally relevant exhibits that represent life on those full 27,000 acres, but also just history a bit more broadly. And so we think this exhibit is very relevant to the Rancho. It's very relevant just kind of to the country even. And so before we get into kind of the importance of it, I will invite us all to partake in sort of an imagination exercise. So if you close your eyes right now and I say, picture a cowboy. If a picture came to you, I would think there's probably some trends among the image that came to most of our minds. So it might have been John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, the Lone Ranger. It's probably a middle-aged white man dressed a certain way, and there's trends that we have in that image that comes to our mind that have been influenced by the way that history's been shared in the past and the way that the media has portrayed cowboys. So because of all of that and understanding the importance of highlighting stories that haven't always been shared and looking beyond the kind of typical narrative that has been shared with history, the Rancho decided to highlight cowboys who didn't look like that stereotypical image. So it's including Mexican vaqueros, indigenous cowboys, Black cowboys, maybe cowgirls, and then modern cowboys as well. And so Martin Etem has come in to be the guest curator for this exhibit. So at this point, I will turn it over to him for the presentation. And then again, you can ask your questions in the chat or the Q&A box, and then we'll have that Q&A portion after he's done. So Martin, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be selected. My name is Martin Alexander Etem. I am curating the show Untold Legacies, Rethinking the American Cowboy. I am going to share my screen now that I have said hi to all of you, and so that we can get into the presentation. All right. So here's the title show of the show and the first slide. This is me. I was born in Long Beach, California. I am a visual mixed media artist. My practice focuses on using a wide range of materials and images and different techniques to create artworks. So I use everything from construction materials. I take pride in getting a lot of my art making mediums and tools and things like that from Home Depot, not really just art stores. I'm a lifelong surfer. I use the surfboard materials, and I use pictures and my own painting and drawing skills and mix them all together to create wall sculptures that really look at the human body as a vessel as we go through life. I think we experience things, we have memories, and we have things that fill us up. And I really think of my sculptures as vessels that show my lived experience and then touch upon a shared experience that I think a lot of people can connect with. Um, I'm here because I met everyone at the Rancho because I was part of the Rancho's past show, which is on right now and or just ended then and now. And I had this piece here. Um, and this piece really was a jumping off point for me. This is the first time I've used stainless steel, and this is the first time I've had a photographic print printed on top of stainless steel. But the big thing here is that you can see that I have included the Compton Cowboys riding through the streets, which incorporates the Port of Long Beach. And then actually my classroom, I'm also a teacher, educator of middle school students. And it really speaks to the history of we all need some type of learning environment. And then there are activities as we move up, right? We've got learning as fundamental. It's seen at the bottom of this work. Then we're moving up into activities that help us grow and give us more experience. And then it's all done within the backdrop of our communities. And for me, which is Long Beach. Um, at the opening, I believe it was at the opening, I met Allison, and Allison approached me and said, it was really interesting that you included those Black Cowboys in your piece. The Rancho is really looking into and really thinking about doing the next show on Black Cowboys. She was like, and we don't have a curator. And she was like, have you ever curated a show? And I was like, no, but I've been in a ton of shows. And she's like, well, maybe you'd like to give it a try. We'll keep in touch and let's see how you feel about it going forward. So it was that introduction that really was the start into this. I'm so appreciative of it. This has been one of the most difficult things I have done, I will say, as an artist, because there's a lot more coordination, there's a lot more writing, and a lot more things that go on behind the scenes to make this whole exhibition work. And I am extremely grateful to the team here at Rancho Los Cerritos, who has really helped me in just so many ways. A lot of things happened in my life this year that things got hectic, and I really, really thank my team, Alana, Magda, Allison. I'm forgetting so many names, I know, Diana. But it's an amazing team. I'm very thankful to be working with them, and I really thank them for all the hard work that they've done on the show. Here is our logo for the show. The title is Untold Legacies, Rethinking the American Cowboy. This logo was done by our graphic designer, Luis. This logo went through many different discussions, iterations. We all had things to say about it. There are people who liked it, those who didn't like it. And right off the jump, this one really struck a chord with me personally, just because of how different it was for a logo. And for me, it's circular and it's contemporary. And I was really drawn to the fact that I also made connections of it being similar to a horseshoe, which I thought was special and bringing the whole thing. Also lasso-ish. I really loved the fact of just how it worked also as a framing device. And you will see examples of that in the next slide, where we use this as a way to layer on top of an image, on top of a face of a cowboy. And it really has amazing potential in terms of the marketing of the show on social media and just in print. Um, and it's just striking. It's very different. And I'm appreciative that I was given the space and the ability to do things that are probably a little bit different than what people are going to be used to seeing at the Rancho. And it's really beautiful that the Rancho is opening up its space to um, different type of creators, different type of visions, and people with different minds who are probably thinking different than yourselves or the typical people who enter this space. And I really think that going forward, this series of shows and guest curators will allow a whole new generation, a whole different type of people to visit the Rancho, which is I think is really beautiful. So here is a selection of images of how the logo will be used. Again, this is showing its potential and it's really and really how well it does as a framing device, and also capturing the multiplicity. Because as Alana spoke earlier, we're in this throughout this exhibition, we're really trying to highlight and really hone in on how these contemporary cowboys today, how diverse they are, how different looking they are, yet how they identify with cowboys in their own way. So putting our logo and having sort of that encapsulate the image of the person and each and every one, because there are similarities throughout all these cowboys and cowgirls that you see within these images, but yet they're all different and unique. And in this show, we really want to celebrate how diverse, how beautiful, how rich, how culturally expansive being a cowboy is today. And I think having this logo really helps us to highlight that. So the exhibition overview, as Alana said, the exhibition overview, we are trying to highlight the immense contributions that Spanish, Mexican, Native Americans, and African Americans had on cowboy history and traditions. When I closed my eyes, when I really started to do a lot of research into cowboys, I was shocked at how many, just where it came from. When I was looking through it, it really started in like the Middle East and Northern Africans and things like that. I had never even thought um, that the horse riding techniques, the skills were being honed back in the 1500s in Africa, in Spain, and things like that, and then were brought to the Americas via Mexico and then into Northern America. So this exhibition is really going to debunk popular myths. I think we have all been under, Hollywood has such a tight grip on how we think about things, marketing, advertising. So there's an amazing section here about debunking popular myths. It is very important for us to connect the Rancho and the Rancho's history to these new exhibitions, and we have a beautiful section on the history of the Rancho Los Cerritos and how their employment of cowboys, vaqueros, and different people of Mexican and Native American descent, how they played a role in the Rancho's history. And I really think that all these different storylines, the diverse narratives that we're going to talk about, the things that you wouldn't expect to be highlighted, this exhibition is really going to resonate with a large population and a different population. Going back to that logo, I immediately thought of a hip hop album. I know that sounds weird, but hip hop typography, calligraphy, and logo design is all going through a phase right now of really looking towards the past, remixing it, and bringing it to the future. And so I think we're doing just that here too. And it's a beautiful thing to do it under such a American thing, which is the cowboy, and really sharing how diverse and culturally rich and beautiful it was. The exhibition is going to have 5 sections, which is going to include like the historical informative text and imagery backgrounds. So we have Home on the Range, which is going to delve into cowboy history largely. We have Makings of a Myth, which we're going to be doing myth busting. We're going to talk about how so many of the things that we were told aren't quite true, aren't true, and how they've been able to sort of paint a different picture of, or really make the cowboy, they think of it as a white man usually, when it wasn't that through all of its history. We have Vaqueros del Rancho, which is where we're going to connect the Rancho's history to um, the use of cowboys and vaqueros and to this exhibition. And then we've got the Cowboy Renaissance, which is where we will talk about um, how contemporary music, media, movies, film, TV shows, how they are really picking up and taking the torch and telling these beautiful stories of how diverse this era really was. And then we've got Writing On, which is where we're going to highlight three of our community partners. So in this section, we have chosen Taking the Reins. We have Maisha Akbar, and then we also have Urban Saddles, which are writing groups that are working in today's communities, our local communities here in Southern California, and they are continuing on those traditions. So Home on the Range is focused on the cowboy history. In Home on the Range, we are talking about how cowboy culture developed and how so many different cultures and people were a part of its development. It really started in Spain. Spain developed the hacienda system in which they had these large plots of land where they needed to herd cattle. And they developed a group of men who were excellent horse riders. They were excellent with the lasso, and they created a whole new way and tradition of working on these haciendas to herd the cattle, to farm, and to produce products. It's really an economic system, and that's where it started. As Spain expanded, they moved into Mexico, and in Mexico, they brought their hacienda system. Um, There, the Spanish vaqueros started teaching their traditions to Mexicans, and then that also filtered into Native Americans and indigenous people also taking what they've learned and using their knowledge of the land and really enhancing that tradition. Mexican in this section, we're really going to highlight how skilled Mexican vaqueros were. They were incredible horsemen, they were incredible herders, and they really, from their clothes, from their culture, from their music to their competitions and things like that, they really influenced the cowboy tradition from Mexico and throughout the American West. Um, we're going to talk about how on the ranch, people had different titles that was largely tied to their race. Um, so you will see that we have Mexicans and Spanish people on the ranch or on the rancho were often called vaqueros. African Americans were derogatorily called cowboys, which stems from the slave era terminology of calling any black person, no matter what their age, a boy. So that's really how the start of where cowboy came from. And then we've got white men, usually in managerial positions, who were the ranch hands. Um, and then we move on, and we really see how after the Civil War, ranching it really expanded. Um, but we have seen that all these people really helped from a long history into, as we're coming more into the American West, really played a crucial and very important role in cowboy history and the development of cowboy traditions and skills. In this section, Makings of the Myth, we're going to talk about popular myths that really made us think about that cowboy that we saw when we closed our eyes. Popular media has long portrayed cowboys as a lone ranger, very strong, usually a white man who's saving his town or village from savages in some way, who are usually portrayed as Black, Mexican, or indigenous. They were the savages. And that's really the storyline that you see throughout most of the TV shows and the Hollywood films of that time. Um, so there, we're going to really debunk those myths. We're going to talk about how the collapse of the ranching industry led to um, the cowboys needing work, and they found work in other areas. Um, we're going to talk about how false narratives supported discriminatory views and policies like Jim Crow laws, the Mexican Repatriation Act, the Indian Adoption Project, and further dividing the nation along racial lines. And how, despite their erasure, the Black, Indigenous, and Mexican cowboys were integral to the success of the cattle ranching industry and continue to reclaim their history today, history and heritage. In this section, it's really amazing too. And there are a lot of, in this section, there are going to be a lot of interactive things that you can do. There's going to be a lot of questions on the wall that are really going to engage the viewer. We have a life-size John Wayne poster that will be up, and so it's really going to be a good and very informative section that's really, I think, going to make people think of just how potent and how good sort of the stories that were told in the media and in Hollywood films, how big of an effect it had on people and what they thought a cowboy and who they thought a cowboy was. In the Vaqueros del Rancho section, this is where we connect Rancho Los Rios' long history with that of the American cowboy. So we have John Temple, who purchased the land, who purchased the rancho, and he turned it into a major cattle ranch. And he needed people to help manage all these cattle. So he used indigenous laborers, and he used them to raise and herd and make hide and tallow out of their 15,000 estimated cows that were on the ranch. In 1850, the census record 33 residents at the rancho. There was one manager, 14 laborers, and many of them were from indigenous ancestry. And they were also skilled vaqueros. I think this section is really important to see. It allows the public to step into a space and a historic site where this exhibition of what we're talking about, how diverse the people who were a part of the vaquero and cowboy traditions, how they had a hand in even these spaces today. I mean, from these beginnings, you have the rancho that still exists now. And the laborers, the vaqueros, the indigenous laborers who worked back then, I think also had a hand in where the rancho is today. So it's a really nice connection for people to step on land where all this work was going on and to see how um, these institutions thrive, see how they exist today, see how they grow and evolve. And it's a really important thing for the rancho also to acknowledge its history and the people who played a big role in it. And oftentimes they're the people who you don't often hear about. So it's kind of the antithesis of hearing about the Bixby's and the John Temples. In this section, we really get to talk about some of the important people like Miguel Murillo and Juan Cañado, who were also a part of the rancho, and they played a very important roles in its development. In this section, Cowboy Renaissance is where we bring it into the sort of contemporary times. I was really interested in this exhibition when I was asked to do it because in music culture, in TV cultures, I feel like there really is a renaissance going on to the stories that are being told. You have a lot more people of color, Black, Mexican, um, Native American. You have a lot of people who are sitting in rooms and they're allowed to make decisions now. They're allowed to tell their story, and they're telling it in beautiful ways, very honest ways, and it's really leading to um, a beautiful selection of arts that where different sort of views, stories, and identities are being celebrated. So, in this section, I've highlighted a few musical artists that you may or may not be familiar with. We have Lil Nas X. He is I would say he's a rapper and R&B singer, but he made it huge with his song about cowboys. I'm blanking on his song title, but Old Town Road. Sorry, Old Town Road was a huge hit, and it went to number one. It was sort of the first time we have seen a contemporary Black artist who was very young. I think he's maybe 20, really go to number one on most of the music charts. And I know that Black people have participated in country music, but this is the first time where he really sort of crossed cultures with it and brought it almost into a pop type sensation. Um, and it was nice to see him sort of remix that culture, that song, a lot of the lingo and the terminology in the song, uh, to bring together a new contemporary remixed feel of how Blacks have participated in this seemingly or mostly for white people genre, which is not true. Um, we have Solange Knowles and Beyonce. They are sisters who each have produced albums that really take a lot of inspiration from their Houston backgrounds, which has a very big cowboy history. So here, this is the picture that you see here to the right. It's Beyonce for her new album, which is titled Cowboy Carter. Um, and then we have films like Django Unchained and Lawman Bass Reeves. So in Django, this is a Quentin Tarantino film. It stars Jamie Foxx, and he is a slave who was freed by a white German bounty hunter. The bounty hunter starts to pay him, allows him to ride on a horse. Throughout the movie, you really see this Black man in this slave era have the ability to buy his own clothes. He comes in riding a beautiful white horse in these very eccentric clothes. And these slaves in the film are just shocked by what they see because they've never seen a Black person have the agency or the ability to buy these things. Um, I think it's important that we see films like this because it really shakes up the traditional scenes where you see Black men in the slave era as very docile, very sort of stripped away, inhuman, powerless people. So it's nice to see in a story a Black man who's challenging these ways in this slave era. Um, I think this part of the exhibition is very important because we on the walls we will have these albums displayed, we will have these DVDs displayed, and again we're making connections with a new audience, and I think there's a lot of visitors to this rancho that will see a connection within the things that they have seen and the music that they hear. Um, this music isn't what you traditionally hear all the time, but there are a lot of people who connect with it, and there are a lot of people who are resonating with it and listening to it. Same with the film. So again, I think it's really important that in the sections we're connecting with the contemporary audience, maybe a new, youthful, young audience, but there are also, everyone's listening to this. And I think its popularity shows again how Black, brown, indigenous creators are being allowed to tell their story, and they're being given the platform that to express themselves in a truthful way. The last section of writing on of this exhibition is titled Writing On. Here is where we have our three community partners. The first one we have is Urban Saddles. They are a nonprofit out of Southgate, California. So they lead their youth through equestrian programs, which include experiences teaching them how to ride a horse, teaching them their cowboy code, and linking the history to teaching programs. So they're really teaching how Black people have played a crucial role in the equine and cowboy history, and they are continuing that on. Throughout this section, I think it's really interesting is where you start to really see how this cowboy traditions has shifted from sort of great expansive plains, the Western frontier, right, is where you generally are thinking of a cowboy. And now we're starting to see these cowboys hit the streets. Like literally, we'll have images of these riding groups who ride in South Central, who ride together in Compton. They ride together down the 710 in the back roads near North Long Beach there. So it's quite interesting. This is where I've really seen the biggest evolution of this cowboy history and how Black, Brown, and Indigenous people are carrying on the torch is where they've taken their horses. These new programs are in people's backyards. So they have not been limited to urbanization or the development of expansive and huge cities in and around the country and in Southern California. It's really amazing to see how they are taking their space, their community, and they are continuing these traditions. They are out there being seen on the streets. They don't need an expansive ranch anymore. They don't need an expansive farmland to do all this. But what's really important to them is that they have their horses. Their horses are being cared for, and the space that they do have, they're opening it up to their youth, to their community, so that they can learn, so that they can partake in more positive experiences. And it's really having a positive effect. You have a lot of kids from these inner city communities who are now going to college, who are graduating, and they are getting into farming industries and things like that. We also have Taking the Reins, a not-for-profit out of downtown LA. They empower underserved girls through equestrian activities, teaching life skills, confidence, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. And then we have Maisha Akbar. She founded the Compton Junior Posse Youth Equestrian Program. She was a very successful real estate broker, and she was researching land. She came upon Richland Farms, which was a very had very rich areas in terms of like farming, horse stables, and a lot of space. And she bought a house there. She had equestrian space, so she brought in horses, which is kind of from her background of how she grew up. And she really opened up her doors to her youth and the kids of her neighborhoods and allowed them to come learn how to ride these horses, how to care for these horses. She is just a huge star within the cowboy history. She was inducted into the Cowboy Hall of Fame in 2019. Anytime I call her, text her, she's like, "My schedule's filling up. When is the show opening?" Because I've got to. I mean, she's won so many awards. She's done so many things within the sphere that she's really a shining light, and we're really happy to have her. And for both of those, the last two, Taking the Reins and Maisha, um, I really I was kind of bummed on how we really wanted to talk about how women were really a force of their own within the cowboy history and legacy. And we touch upon it a little bit throughout the show. It's beautiful that we have these two people and these groups taking the reins in Maisha Akbar, because they're really showing how important women are to cowboy history, all the contributions they have done, how they've opened up their programs to so many people. Really, Taking the Reins is helmed and founded, and the CEO right now is Jane Haven. So again, a woman. These women are sort of these matriarchs for these beautiful, very beautiful community and writing groups that are really making a huge difference in a lot of kids' lives. Um, I went to Taking the Reins. It's just off the 5 freeway. It's by that new sort of all white bridge that's just behind Dodger Stadium. It's really a trip to go visit this space. It's such a beautiful space that they have parked right up along the 5 freeway there, and it's just within this neighborhood. There's this beautiful neighborhood, and then you come across the smell of horses, right? And then you really start to see all these different stables and the space that they have. So they're really working with a group of people who I would say are at risk because they're under resourced. They're from tougher areas, which don't have a lot of opportunities for the best education, the best living experiences. They're often in food desert. That taking the reins teaches farming, planting plants, and learning how to cook vegetables and things like that they have grown. So I thought it was really beautiful that we were able to get two people, and one's an organization, but they've both founded these incredible nonprofits and youth groups. And they've really, as women, they've really had a huge impact on their communities. So this is where it is beautiful to celebrate how women always play a huge role and are often erased throughout history, but they continue to just go and they continue to have a positive effect on our futures. So the last part of this show is where we will highlight 5 contemporary artists, just like we did in Then and Now exhibition. We have Daniel, Tyree, Gator Lomack, Nia Simone, Lorenzo Baker, Ellie Omar Gonzalez, and Brooklyn Sabino Smith. It's going to be a little different in terms of how we display the artwork this time. In the previous exhibition, Then and Now, we had artists whose thematic work was grouped along that section of whatever they were talking about. So that section was related to the artist's work, and the artist's work was related to the information that was on that sort of about that subject on the text wall. Here, we're going to have all the artists shown together on the wall. That's the same wall where you enter on those doors. So all the artwork will be displayed sort of together and will not be in the sections, but each of the artists and their artworks are speaking to the diverse images they're creating, and really expanding upon where these cowboys ride, what they look like, who they are, their identities. So there's really a nice fluidity. There's a nice diversity of work and artists in this show. Daniel is a great artist. I've shown with him a bit. He's a great friend, a very deep guy. I call him a street poet. He's a performance artist, and pretty much, I don't know if he's ever bought anything from an art store. He finds everything, and that's why I mean he's a street poet. He takes whatever you thought was trash on the street, he takes it. In his last exhibition in this past summer, he had a ginormous 20-foot light post lying on the floor with eye covers on it. He's a very incredible man. In this exhibition, he's done more of a traditional artwork, but he's really a very deep, very sensual, spiritual person and an amazing friend. This is his artwork. It's titled Iron Horse. This is done when he was on a residency in New York City, actually New Haven, Connecticut, but he often rode the train into New York. So Iron Horse is where we have a very grainy photo. He took this on a very old photo. This is him riding the train, and he's on the way to, I think, some type of celebration, but he's dressed as a cowboy. But you can't really make most of that out. So it really speaks to the stereotypes that you will see or that often are given off when you look at a silhouette. When you have a silhouette of something, that's often more or less a stereotype because your mind is trying to associate these signs and symbols as to what they know. So you see the cowboy hat, he's got a vest on, and that's pretty much it. The piece is titled Iron Horse because he's riding what he calls the new horse of our generation, which is the subway, the train. The train is the new way of herding cattle. The people who are going off to work, the people who are going off for play and pleasure. the Iron Horse is our public transportation system today for Daniel. And I think that's a big jump for most people to think of, to conceptualize how you go from horse to this ginormous machine that's transporting millions of people a day. But I think it opens up an interesting conversation into industrialization, um, the evolution of cities, how we went from sort of Great Plains and into these very densely populated cities. And there are a lot of interesting things going on here, and that can spur a lot of conversation. Next artist we have is Nia Simone. So I was part of the um, Long Beach Public Arts program, and Nia Simone is as well. And that's how I found her through their database. So Nia is an oil painter. She's based in Long Beach. She's also based in Compton, I believe. Her focus is on narrative oil paintings and large work. She focuses on herself and various types of settings. They're often dreamlike, and she really pushes the bar for surrealism in painting, which is where you're really sort of taking odd, interesting things. You can think of Dali, where he's got the melting clocks, right? It's really an expansive genre of art where you can really play with reality. Her artwork, which is still in the development stages, this is her sketch though, is where she's got a cowboy on the on a broken street or road that meets, it's where street meets sort of nature. Um, the cowboy is dressed in very interesting and contemporary clothing, non-traditional. He's got the cowboy hat, but he's in a Adidas tracksuit. And I think it speaks to what cowboys are wearing today. You've got the Compton Cowboys, who are a very popular cowboy group. They've gotten a lot of media attention, a lot of play within the hip hop community and music and movies. Who are also, they're not always dressed in cowboy boots. They're not always wearing leather pants. They're often wearing slides, which are a form of flip flops, and they're wearing t-shirts. They're wearing joggers. So different things, but they're still partaking in equestrian and cowboy traditions. They're still caring for their horses with deep passion and love. They're still riding with intent, with purpose, and with goals of fostering a better future. And I think this really speaks, her work will really speak to that as well. Lorenzo Baker is another artist that I showed with him at a group show at Otis College, where he is a graduate. I did not attend there. He is an amazing artist. I would call him more of a remix artist. He dabbles in the remixing of digital images and painting. So he's working in Photoshop, Illustrator, and that's where he's making beautiful works that really combine a lot of different artistic styles to come up with a narrative that bridges sort of past with present, and the future is his remixing, how the colors pop, how you're looking at a lot of different people from a lot of different cultural backgrounds and also times. So here's his piece. This is called Rhinestone Cowboy. It's based off of a rapper. His name is MF Doom. He has a song called Rhinestone Cowboy. So in the actual artwork, it's not shown here in the digital file. There are rhinestones that will sparkle. So we've got a traditional, what you would expect of a traditional cowboy image on a bucking horse. But throughout that, he's got these stars. He's got this shine. He's got this glitter that really speaks, I think, to Afrofuturism, where they're using a lot of glitter. They're using a lot of gold. They're remixing ancestral things. They're remixing things like hieroglyphics and stuff like that. Here it touches on that sort of Black excellence and how it shines and how it's continuing to shine through. Omar Gonzalez, he's a great friend of mine. I met him in Long Beach on 4th Street at a Fourth Friday. that they have there. He was exhibiting some works at a local shop, and that was probably like close to 10 years ago. We have seen our friendship grow, our families have grown. We both are fathers now, and husbands. So it's an amazing thing to see him grow. Um, he's a Mexican artist. He is from North Highlands, California. He really is a beautiful painter. He ties in a lot of experiences from himself, and then he looks to things like labor, race, and also leisure. It's very important that he shows various working class people who I think you would think of them, black, brown people who you would see them as laborers. It's important for him to flip the narrative and show them at leisure, show them enjoying their lives, which they do. These people are not just pickers all day. They're not just there mowing people's lawns. They're not just cleaning cars all day. They also go home to their families where they lead beautiful lives, where they are parents to their kids. They like to relax just like any rich person or any person of means or anyone likes to do. And that's very important to Ellie. But in this, he's created three different artworks, three beautiful pieces. Often what Ellie is doing is he is dyeing his fabric from the start. So you will see in a lot of the backgrounds, it almost looks like a tie-dyed shirt. So he is dyeing his canvas first in ink. Once that has dried, he starts to lay down his image. He starts to go for it. And I think in these three paintings, you see a beautiful range of what a cowboy looks like today. Again, we've got him really challenging the cowboy stereotype of what they wear with like their cowboy hats, their leather and stuff like that. So the picture on the left, the pink one, you've got a cowboy in sort of a baseball cap. He's wearing shorts and he's riding. And a car, if you look off into the distance, these are smaller works. A car is in his path. So it's again, we're starting to see the conversation of different modes of travel. How people are traveling, yet how people are carrying on traditions, despite all the technology that we have today. Um, People are still riding horseback, and you can see it in if you drive around the 710 in North Long Beach. If you drive through Compton, it's quite surreal to be in your car and seeing someone alongside of you riding on horseback. And I think that work really touches upon that. We've got a more traditional work in the center, which is a nice interplay, I think, as a compare and contrast of the cowboy on the left to a more traditional picture of a cowboy. And then we've got just a few horses on the range, and celebrating their beauty, um, for that last image there. Next, we have Brooklyn Sabino Smith. Brooklyn is a character. She's a great, beautiful person. She's a performance artist. She's a jewelry maker, which is how I know her. She's made a few. So if you look at the body shapes of my work, I've had her do that in 14 karat gold and 18 karat gold necklaces for me, and that's how I know her. Um, I think she is very uh, into Afrofuturism and the interplay of sort of that Africana and Latino mix, as that is her own heritage herself. In this exhibition, she'll be displaying some sculptures where, again, similar to Lorenzo's, where you see the shining rhinestones, you're going to see traditional cowboy outfits and clothing like boots, maybe a lasso, maybe belts, sombreros or hats that have gone through her process of glamorization, the bling bling. She's going to deck these out in all the rhinestones, all the sparkles to let them shine, not only for their history, but also as beautiful objects. Some of the takeaways for this exhibition is that we hope we get people to think bigger, to think deeper, to be more thoughtful um in not just who a cowboy is, but hopefully maybe in life, not just seeing that person who cleans your car, who just does your lawn or cuts your hair, stuff like that. These are people who are from very diverse backgrounds. They lead expansive lives beyond what they do. So I think it's important that in this exhibition, we're really challenging people to think about what they've seen in TV, in movies, in music, what they've learned in the history books. Who was that told by? Who was excluded in this different media source? Who's writing these? Because that's where this cowboy myth of the white man, sort of the John Wayne figure, comes from. It's from largely people who were white men who were telling these stories, which often erased people who were actually very important to the history of the cowboy culture. And I think it's about that. I think it's about being more thoughtful, and thinking deeper, and really thinking about what we're seeing and what we're hearing and how and who it's told by. Um, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for the visitors to sort of interact with things. We're developing like a sort of diorama scene where people can move around cowboys, different cattle and livestock, which would be sort of in that window area of the exhibition. Um, we'll have other opportunities to sort of questionnaires, sort of things throughout the exhibition, possibly mirrors where people can interact visually. We are, love it or hate it, in a selfie world. So we think about ways to connect with people who are into that. But then that also leads to a very important part of our world, which is on social media. And if you can get people to engage in social media, you can often gain a following, but you can intrigue someone who wouldn't necessarily or usually come to the rancho to come. And so that's a very important aspect of it, that's why another reason why I think this series of guest curators is a beautiful thing, because we're bringing our communities who might not have ever gone to the rancho before, and we're opening it up to them, which is a beautiful thing. And then we will have a list of information, links. We'll have all the information on the writing groups. And throughout the exhibition year, we will have workshops, artist workshops, but also we will have each of the community partners come in, do a workshop. We're going to be doing a movie screening and a Q&A with that director after. So there are a lot of opportunities throughout this exhibition and throughout the exhibition year to partake, to come learn something new, be immersed in, and be challenged maybe in what you typically thought, what you thought a cowboy was, and you'll come out, I think, learning a lot more, and hopefully being challenged and expanded in your views of what a cowboy is, and how that goes on throughout life. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you for having me. And that is my sort of little explanation and synopsis of this exhibition.
Thank you very much, Martin. That was very interesting and informative, and we're looking forward to seeing it. After a little bit of a tease, I can't wait to see some of these things coming. Have we had any questions? I haven't seen. Did anybody have questions for Martin?
So we did have, well, first of all, Melissa made a couple other connections beyond the pop culture things we talked about with music and TV and film, but also like the Marlboro brand and how cowboys have been infused into marketing, which is, a whole other thing. And then video games as well. So like everywhere you turn, there's cowboys, and they've all kind of been influenced by this same media portrayal. And so now we're kind of turning that on its head. So we did have a question about when the show is scheduled to open, which is July 14th. And it's a Sunday, and it will start at 1. And so we'll have an exhibition opening on that day, and then it will be up for a year until June 2025. So you'll have many opportunities to visit it. And then I think Melissa also was kind of asking Is there a prominent culture or subculture for cowboys today? Has the cowboy culture changed drastically from the past to today? So Martin, I think you touched on that a bit with the community partners, but I don't know if you have anything to add. The question was asked before we got to that slide.
As far as subcultures, yeah, I would really think about what comes to mind is the Compton Cowboys, which are probably the most famous writing group who are getting the most media attention. A group of Black writers who participated in films. They're also they do a lot of things of trying to get people to register to vote from their community. They're from Compton, obviously, which probably has low voter turnout and not a lot of I would say that that's probably not high on their agenda. So they're very for social justice as well. But yes, also those community partners, and then just people within these areas. I mean, sort of where Rancho is and being near the 710, there's a lot of groups there. I was also at a birthday party at the park near the Rancho, and there was just a cowboy. I mean, there was just a guy riding his horse through the park. So these subgroups are definitely happening. And we also have an intern who said she knew some people from her community that are still engaging in sort of like cowboy and vaquero traditions and sort of things like that.
All right, we're getting a lot of comments. People are looking forward to it, seeing how fascinating it sounds and how smart it is to connect to cowboy culture, because it is the up and coming popular thing.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll move on to our volunteer check-ins. So we can start promoting you, and you'll be able to see each other on the screen if you want to. And so it'll seem like you're leaving for a minute, and then you'll be in. So hold on while we work on promoting you all to panelists. Some people seem to be unpromotable for some reason every month, but we'll see. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Not
that
everybody that wants to be promoted has been promoted. So we decided recently, instead of having a specific prompt that everybody would respond to, that we'll just share whatever you want to share. And I'm the lucky person that gets to start. And since I just got back from vacation, I have lots to share. But I'm going to share my most exciting event on my vacation. I I drove up to Oregon to see my son play with my 91-year-old father, who is a professional driver. He did a very good job, 2,000 miles. But the highlight of our trip, besides seeing my son play on a beautiful outdoor stage in Jacksonville, Oregon, was we went to Crater Lake. And of course, we couldn't stay there because you have to plan way ahead if you're going to be able to stay at Crater Lake. But there's another place called Diamond Lake just north of it. And we stayed there. And when we were leaving that morning, it was actually spritzing a bit of snow and rain. And we were driving along on a 2-lane highway, and running towards us was an elk being chased by a wolf. And the elk was running right in front of our car. And as he tried to divert and not get hit by us, he slipped and fell on his knees, but immediately jumped back up and kept on running. So that was pretty exciting for me. I've only seen a wolf once before in my life, and it wasn't chasing an elk. So that was the highlight of my trip. So would anybody else like to share? I know it probably won't be nearly as exciting, but Gregory,
If I go?
yes.
Well, I was hoping you were going to say that before you went on vacation.
Before I went on vacation, I went to a very great production at the in Long Beach that Gregory was the star of.
Oh my goodness, I had 5 parts. It was very fun.
Yes, lots of costume
This
changes.
is actually Laura's responsibility because she's the one that introduced me to Ralph a few years ago, and they're neighbors. And Ralph is the playwright and librettist on this musical. It was a lot of fun. So, but that was the weekend, the beginning of your vacation, right? Before you took off,
Right.
And then what happened after that? Well, this week, well, I got hired by Long Beach Unified School District, as you guys all know, but for substitute teaching. I finally got the FBI clearance, so that was wonderful. I'll start subbing in August. And then I just submitted a piece of work that I had composed. And so I'm submitting that for publication. I just did that today. And I have my artwork at Hot Stuff, which is on Broadway. Flowers of COVID. Proceeds of the sales go to Rancho Los Cerritos because a lot of the flowers that I sketched are at the Rancho. So if you're interested, yeah. So, and then unfortunately, sad, the gentleman that I was staying with, we had to put his dog down yesterday. He was diagnosed with a disease that didn't have enough platelets for his blood to clot, and I don't remember the name of it. But he had like 25,000 platelets, and they're supposed to have like 100,000. So anyway, hard days as well, but mixed blessings, right? The good stuff. And I really loved your presentation, Martin. Looking forward to the exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, yes.
Hi, I just wanted to share. I don't know if Alana told Martin, but here in Wrigley, we have this Wrigley Greenbelt that was recently put in. It's a, what do you call it? Native plant thing. But there's all these horses there. And I'm so fascinated because they're beautiful horses and they seem to be changing all the time. So I don't know if they board there, or I tried to ask a guy one day and he was a little vague about it, but we also see them riding around our neighborhood. But it's worth a trip just to look at the pretty horses. Like sometimes there's ponies and they're braided and they're just the most, and I'm not an animal lover, but even I admire them. Like, oh my God, those are nice horses. So I don't know, Alana, do you know anything about these horses, or have you asked?
Not really. They, even before the Greenbelt, they had the horse properties along there. And actually our staff member, Edie, the custodian, she knows about it because she's also a Wrigley resident. But it's interesting because they've got the didactic panels. And so it's got like the equestrian history of Los Angeles. So there's a little panel along there too as you walk. But I haven't ever chatted with the people. So it is really fun, and you do see kind of different.
Do you notice they keep
size, shape, and
changing?
color.
It's not the same horses. And
Yeah.
I'm like, come and they're all beautiful. So I don't know if people just board them there or send them there for special care and then take them out, but they're really nice horses.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool area over there. I did go, I was in and around that space trying to find community partners, which I kind of struck out on, just kind of unfortunate. But yes, I do know what you're talking about. It is very cool.
Marcia, you're muted. There you go.
Well, it was funny because I feel like I've been riding a horse for 3 months because I've had 2 broken legs, so I have to waddle. But I told this lady today, I said, I'm gonna do something about cowboys. Go to my garage and get me a cowboy hat. And when you were talking your thing, she didn't know which one was a cowboy hat. And so she brought me all 3 of them. And I said, the buffalo one. I really wanted the, buffalo and then Calvary one. But she brought me these 3, and these are ones I used to wear all the time when I was doing things at the rancho. But I did it for fun because I missed the rancho. and I wish I was back there. But then I told her to go get me a cowboy shirt, and I don't know why she thought this was a cowboy shirt, but it's from a women's museum. So I was glad you mentioned about cowgirls and all that, and I'm excited. I hope I get to at least waddle to see it, the exhibit, and much as I can see. But I think it's going to be excellent. I loved how you described it. And even though I couldn't always see the pictures because I'm visually impaired, but you made it so I could visualize what was there. Thank goodness you said that other one was out of focus, the one with the iron horse, because I kept thinking my machine couldn't even read what it said. But now when you said it that way, that was actually great. So I love to hear, and I do know some of those artists that you are going to producing. I have one question. Is the thing that we used to have before I had me stuck for 5 years on rectangles, there used to be a thing that is both, well, there was one by a Long Beach school in on Victoria, and there was one downtown Long Beach where they would take people for horseback riding that were all different disabilities, 95 years old, and they have, I don't know, it was Dream Catcher or Dream something. Is that still around or no?
I did see a Dreamcatcher sign. I think back there on the 710. I think Alana did mention that Dreamcatchers at one point during one of our meetings.
Okay,
I might have found them with like a Google search, but I don't think we were ever able to get in touch with them because
yeah, I
I'm
know
not
they closed for a
familiar.
while during COVID, but then I didn't know if they were back because, that's a neat thing. And then do you remember when our rancho had the lasso guy that came out? I can't remember what event it was, but he was teaching everybody how to let kids with the ropes lassoing. And so I was thinking of all those things when you were sharing. So thank you for bringing me back to my rancho day memories. And thanks for having it on Zoom so I could actually be here. So take care, and I'm hoping I can get there. So if not, thanks. Nice meeting you, Martin.
Well, I think you'll have a year, Marcia. So we're going to cross our fingers that you'll be able, right? It's going to be up for a year. So you should be able to get there in that time period.
But as soon as I get the braces off the leg, I can get in Ubers and stuff like that. But for now, actually, I could probably ride a horse easier to get there, come to think of it. Because I have to wait. That's how the legs have to be like this. But yeah, I'm going to make my every effort to at least be there. And then if I can't read something, I'll have my machine read it to me or something. So I'll get there.
All right.
Thank you. Who else is on here? Because I'm listening to here.
Well, we have Tom.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Does Tom want to share? Anybody else want to share? I'm not going to force you. Don't have to if you want to.
I'll share.
All right.
Hey, hi. It's
Melissa.
Melissa. Hi everyone. I'm really new. Like I haven't I had to sign up for that training. I think of the training because I know it got rescheduled because the instructors were sick with COVID, I believe. So I just signed up for the 29th workshop. Yeah, on the 29th. And yeah, and then from there, I guess since we're talking about cowboys and horses, I kind of feel like for me, I'm kind of like laughing because I don't think I have like a lot of horse riding experience. I think only when I was like a little kid. Do you guys know the Orange County farms where you know how they had those field trips in elementary school? And they took us out, we're in kinder, first grade, right? Possibly. And they took us out to an Orange County farm and they had like the little petting zoos. And I remember, faintly remember there were horses there, like ponies. And I got on one. So they usually like, they do like they just ride them around, but it's not like, that's pretty much it. Really into horses. Um, but yeah, I actually have a friend. She's currently in Turkey. I think I mentioned it in the chat, and she's doing horse riding over there. I think Turkey has like a really big riding culture as well in Morocco. So she's been there too, and she's like there right now. I'm like, that is so amazing. Like they, I'm like that horse riding. I'm like, I think it takes a lot of courage to ride a horse like that to like, because they run really fast, like on the beach and stuff. And yeah, well, concerning me, I don't really have much going on. The only thing I have going on right now is I'm looking for work. So like, so it's been kind of hard lately. So, I did get interviews, but I keep getting no's. I'm like, yeah, it's hard getting work, but yeah, that's mostly what's going on with me. Nothing else. But But I am a creative though. Like I'm really into, so when Martin was talking about like the people that he mentioned, the artists, people that do mixed media, people that do oil painting, I actually can relate to that. So I thought it was very beautiful. I'm mentioning other artists as well. There's that. But I don't know. Yeah, pretty much it.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, we
Thank
hope
you.
to see you around the rancho sometime soon.
Yeah, yeah. I need to sign up soon because I was looking at the calendar and but since I have you here, can I ask you, should I do the training first? That's why I've kind of been holding back a bit, or can I just volunteer? Like that's okay, or should I do the training first and then volunteer after?
You can start volunteering and do the training.
Oh,
You don't have
the
to wait
training?
until you do the training to volunteer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's how I was like thinking, should I just wait? Because I was like not sure if that was like priority or
Oh,
something. So I
no,
just was
please,
asking.
please go ahead and sign up to volunteer and then you can take the training.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. You're welcome. Anybody else want to share?
Well, I'll share.
Okay.
I'm dog sitting right now. Surprise. And that's little Cooper down here. Coopy, look, look. He's happy. Can you see him?
Yeah, he looks asleep.
I know. He's happy. So, like, I love all my animals. So, and when you talk about horseback riding, as kids, I grew up in Compton, and we'd go horseback riding off of Alondra. We'd go out there, and they would go along the trail there before the river. So it was a lot of fun. And then going to Catalina too. We'd always grab a horse and take off and have fun. So I'm excited about the cowboy time. It's going to be different than Haas back in the Hollywood presentation of what cowboys were, because I know there was a lot more to it than just the typical redneck cowboy. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Martin, for the presentation, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right. Floyd's trying to figure out how to type something into the chat. Is he there with you, Nancy? Does he want to talk? Maybe not. Okay, I think I will wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for coming. If you haven't signed up for training, it's filling up on the 29th. I hope that we'll have room for everybody. We have summer camp coming up, and we need more campers. So if you know anybody that has some elementary age kids, let them know about our summer camp. Alana's working really hard on it, and it's going to be a lot of fun, isn't it, Alana?
So much fun, but educational too.
Exactly. And yeah, if anybody, we're also looking for volunteers to be camp counselors. So if you know anybody that's looking to get some hours during the summer and do it in a fun way, and they like working with kids, send them our way. And well, I hope everybody has a very nice evening, and I hope to see you at the rancho very soon. So good night.